There's no better feeling than a personal win, and the State Farm Personal Price Plan can help you do just that. Talk to a State Farm agent today to learn how you can bundle and save with the Personal Price Plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, you know, to check you have the tickets in your wallet first before you drive 2 hours to the big game. Seriously, you had one job. Now the closest you'll get to the 50-yard line is parking lot D. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/campaign to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be.
Curious about how you can achieve smooth, natural-looking, long-lasting filler results? The Juvederm collection of fillers has 6 unique gel fillers that add subtle volume and are designed for different needs in specific areas of the face, like lips, cheeks, chin, smile lines, under eyes, and jawline. Ask your licensed specialist for a full face assessment today and download the Allē app, that's ALLE, the official loyalty program of Juvederm, to save on treatments and get a look that's true to you. For important safety information and to find a licensed specialist, visit Juvederm.com. That's JUVEDERM.com. Not for people with severe allergic reactions, allergies to lidocaine, or the proteins used in Juvederm. Common side effects include injection site redness, swelling, pain, tenderness, firmness, lumps, bumps, bruising, discoloration, or itching. There's a risk of unintentional injection into a blood vessel, which can cause vision abnormalities, blindness, stroke, temporary scabs, or scarring. Talk to a licensed specialist to find out if it's right for you.
Welcome back to Rams Up, your favorite LA Rams podcast. We are part of the Fans First Sports Network. You can follow us on our YouTube channel as well, at LA Rams Up. I'm your host, Mark. I'll be joined occasionally by my football gurus, Paul and Ian. Let's get to it. Welcome, everybody. This segment, I'm going to tackle something I've been meaning to tackle for quite a while here. I'm going to try to assess what type of drafter Les Snead really is. Good, great, mediocre. Taking an analytical approach here, an objective approach as best I can without going total nerd on you. What I'm going to do is walk through every Rams draft since 2012 and identify if we drafted players where they should have been drafted. Did we get them too early, or did we actually get really good value? And I'll be looking at the expected value of each of these players and weighing in on where they should have got drafted. And that's a subjective part of it, and you'll understand what I mean when we get started here. And one other note, in performing this assessment, I did not consider how well they did if they left the Rams. In other words, a player is drafted by the Rams and goes on to have a great career elsewhere. I'm not dinging the Rams for the fact that he performed greater after he left the Rams or sustained his performance after he left the Rams. This is strictly an assessment of them draft-wise. If I'm going to ding them for a guy that excels after they left the Rams, that's a different discussion. That's a discussion about who they decided to keep, who they decided to let walk, that sort of thing. And at the end here, I'm going to share my Rams Up straight up game picks for week 6. Now, this has already been posted on the YouTube channel. And by the time you hear this on the pod, the Thursday night game is behind us. I did, for the record, pick the 49ers in that one. So let's get to this draft analysis. So let's get started. We'll start with 2012 and their first pick, the 15th pick overall, Michael Brockers, and the expected value for that pick using the NFL's draft value chart that's all over the internet, over 1,000 points. And what would I say about that? Probably could have gone a little bit later. Very good player, no Pro Bowls, but a very steady force along the Rams defensive line and later on with the Lions. So you can ding the Rams a little bit, maybe took them a little bit too early, but I would still call that a good draft pick. I'm going to go through the picks I liked, and then I'll get to the ones that didn't work out so great. 3 second-round picks. Janoris Jenkins was pretty solid. Got him about where he belonged, the 39th overall. And Trumaine Johnson in the 3rd round. That was pretty spot on. Played very well for the Rams, moved on to the Jets, and after signing that big contract, much ado about nothing. And 7th round pick, Greg Zuerlein. I think they got good value there. Hey, never draft a kicker, but if you're getting Greg the Leg with the 171st pick in the draft, I'm okay with that. So they got good value there. So overall, Brockers maybe a tad early, but a solid pick. Janoris Jenkins, Trumaine Johnson, about where they should have went, I think. You could even say that they could have gone earlier, both of them. And Greg Zuerlein, 7th round pick, fairly spot on. And the picks that did not work out, wide receiver Brian Quick in the 2nd round, Isaiah Peed in the 2nd round, and then you had Chris Givens in the 4th, Rokavius Watkins in the 5th, Aaron Brown in the 7th. And, Givens had a couple of moments, but 4th round was way too early. And then you had Darrell Richardson in the 7th round. Not bad for a 7th round pick. Probably deserving to go in the 6th round. But that year, overall, when you compare their expected value to the value that was delivered, in other words, if you take Michael Brockers and you say, should have gone late first rather than mid first, a net loss of 450 points. Now, I'm not going to drown you in data like this on a podcast, but just to give you an idea of how I'm assessing it, overall, not a great draft, over 1,000 points in the negative. And you know what? Being in the negative isn't such a bad thing. It's just a matter of if you're over 1,000 points negative, that's not good. I would propose that most teams, more often than not, end up slightly negative. How many first-round picks that are worth 2,000, 3,000 points really end up delivering that value? In other words, you can easily lose 1,000, 2,000 points with a high first-round pick that goes wrong. It's hard to make that up, even with a 6th-rounder that plays like a 2nd-rounder. Hard to make those points up. So negative, not so bad. Just want to minimize it. But overall, I would call that draft probably a C-. The fact that 2 2nd-rounders, Brian Quick and Isaiah Peed, did not work out. Moving on to the 2013 draft, the Rams had 7 picks, and this was another draft that did not really go that well. Tavon Austin, the 8th overall pick, should have delivered 1,400 points value-wise. You know what? He probably played like a 3rd-rounder, so a big hit there. Alec Ogletree, he's the only guy in this draft that I really liked that was somewhat of an impact player. Rams got him with the 30th pick in the 1st round. Maybe played like a 2nd-rounder, but not a bad draft pick. Then you had T.J. McDonald and Stedman Bailey. They both had their moments. They were both 3rd-round picks, probably about where they belonged, but you can't say you were thrilled with them. And then you had Barrett Jones and Brandon McGee in the 4th. A negative net on those guys. And then Zach Stacy in the 5th. I suppose that's about where he should have went. Was making an impact until the Rams drafted this guy named Todd Gurley a couple years later. 2014 is a really difficult draft to assess, and it turned out better than the previous 2 years, mainly because the Rams' 2nd pick, 13th overall, Aaron Donald, played like the number 1 pick. The problem is the Rams had the number 2 pick in that draft, Greg Robinson. So you take a 2,500 point hit, actual value versus expected value. Ouch. The Aaron Donald pick gets about 1,800 points back for you, but still you're in the negative after those 2 first-round picks. Then you had LaMarcus Joyner in the 2nd. That was about spot on. Trey Mason and Maurice Alexander in the 3rd and 4th, respectively. Both of them had their moments as well. Maurice Alexander actually started at safety very briefly and then got fired. Did not work out. And 6th-round pick E.J. Gaines, and here's an example of a guy who maybe did not make his mark with the Rams at all, but he went on to the Jets. And as a 6th-round pick, I can't say he was a disappointment. Another 6th-round pick, Garrett Gant, Michael Sam, and Demetrius Rainey in the 7th round. So obviously you're happy to come out of that draft with Aaron Donald and LaMarcus Joyner as well, as I suppose, but there were a bunch of guys that amounted to pretty much nothing in the 2014 draft. But overall, Aaron Donald saves it a little bit, still in the negative, but not nearly as bad as the 2 previous years. We get to 2015, and we finally nailed our top 2 picks, the 10th overall pick, Todd Gurley, and the 57th overall pick, Rob Havenstein. Both of them, you could argue, should have went earlier than they did. Todd Gurley, short career with the Rams, but how impactful. Man, he might have been the best player in the league for a short period of time. And then Rob Havenstein, very steady, has had a great career, and I would have been okay with him going late in the first. Now, Gurley, before you start taking shots at me about him, he turned this franchise around. He really did. He had such a big part in it. It was Sean McVay and Todd Gurley. They should get the most credit for turning this franchise into a almost annual contender. After that, wow, it didn't really go well. Jamon Brown, Sean Mannion, Andrew Donnell, Bud Sasser, Cody Wickman, Bryce Hager, and Martin Nefetti. And the only one that really made any impact at all was Bryce Hager. Played a little bit for the Rams at linebacker. Overall, give this draft a decent grade because of Gurley and Havenstein. 2016, this is where the Rams had started to bail on a lot of draft picks, trading up for guys like Jared Goff. And Jared Goff, the first overall pick. Now, this is a tough one. What do you say about that pick? And I would argue that as much as I like Jared Goff, I don't think he would warrant the first overall pick in most seasons. But then again, who are you going to pick? Did you want to draft Carson Wentz that season? No, Goff would have been the right pick. So you got to maybe ding the Rams a little bit. But then again, I don't know. I don't know if they had much choice. They had to draft Jared Goff, I think. Maybe they don't make that trade. Maybe that's the answer. But I'm going to leave it at that. Tell me in the comments if at this point, not if the Rams made a mistake drafting Jared Goff, but if Jared Goff, given his resume, was worthy of the first overall pick in a typical year. Then you got to go all the way to the 4th round for the Rams' next pick, Tyler Higbee. I think the Rams got good value there in the 4th round. Then you had Pharaoh Cooper, Tamarick Hemingway, Josh Forrest, and Mike Thomas. Now, Cooper in the 4th round probably played like a 5th rounder, especially when you consider his punt returns. But then, of course, we'll remember him for those 2 fumbles against the Falcons in the playoffs. But that aside, probably a 5th rounder. And then Mike Thomas in the 6th round. Not a bad value, actually. 6th round, remember. And he had a little bit of a career there with the Rams and the Bengals. 2017. And this is perhaps one of Les Snead's best drafts. Gerald Everett in the 2nd round. And, that's probably about where he should have went, maybe a little bit later. He was a 69th overall pick. Then you had Cooper Kupp with the 69th pick overall in the 3rd round. Yeah, you could make an argument for Cooper going in the top 15 overall. Josh Johnson in the 3rd round, pretty spot on. Could have gone a little bit higher. Josh Reynolds and Samson Ebukam, both 4th round picks, and they played like it, I think. Tanzel Smart in the 6th round had a moment or two, and then you had Sam Rogers, the rolling ball of butcher knives, and Ejuan Price in the 6th and 7th round, respectively. Much ado about nothing there. But Everett, Kupp, Johnson, Reynolds, and Ebukam, 5 picks, impact players to some degree. The 2018 draft, nothing to get too excited about here. The first 2 picks were offensive linemen, Joseph Noteboom and Brian Allen. third and fourth round picks respectively. And they were both okay for a moment, but probably have to call them a little bit disappointing. I mean, Noteboom in the third round, maybe should have gone a little bit later. Brian Allen in the fourth round. He was an alternate Pro Bowler one year, right? And then another fourth round pick, John Franklin Myers. And he is an example of a guy who didn't make his mark with the Rams, but looking back, he was a good value in the fourth round. And then there was Okoronkwo in the fifth, pretty good value. John Kelly, Jamal Demby, not so much. Kelly did stick in the NFL with other teams a little bit. And then the sixth round pick, Sebastian Joseph Day, that's a really good value. Another sixth round pick, Trevon Young, not so much. And if you're getting Trevin Howard in the seventh round, I think you're doing okay. Really good value there. And then Justin Lawler, who I thought was going to have a breakthrough year a couple years ago. It didn't happen. So overall, this is not a bad draft, the 2018 draft, but there were really no difference makers. That's the problem I had with that draft. So overall, just a, okay draft. Kind of the same deal with the 2019 draft. No first round pick again. Second round, Taylor Rapp. Probably took him a little earlier than they should have. Same with the third round pick, Darrell Henderson. Just an okay running back. In the third round, David Long, the cornerback. Yeah, he was okay, but probably could have gone a little bit later, I suppose. Another third round pick, Bobby Evans. Rams got screwed on that as far as delivered value. Fourth round pick, Greg Gaines, probably the best pick in this draft. And then fifth rounder, David Edwards, probably spot on. Started for the Rams for a couple years, had the concussion issues and moved on. Seventh rounder, Nick Scott. That's really good value there. You could argue Nick Scott was worthy of a fifth round pick. And then the same with Dakota Allen. Kind of forget about him. A guy the Rams gave up on, played a little bit with the Jags. Not a bad career for a seventh round pick, the 251st pick. So again, kind of like the previous year, 2019, not a bad draft, just no impact players. Overall, don't have a great feeling about this draft. 2020, now this was not a good draft either. Cam Akers, Van Jefferson, I don't know, man, both second round picks probably deserve to go in the third round, if not later. Then you had Terrell Lewis and Terrell Burgess, both third round picks. Rams took a risk with Lewis, came out of college with a knee injury, and then Burgess got hurt very early in his career. Neither of them worked out. Fourth round pick, Bryson Hopkins. He delivered the value of a seventh rounder. The best pick in this draft, sixth rounder, the 199th pick, Jordan Fuller. Played like, I would say, a third or fourth rounder. And then Clay Johnston, Sam Sloman, and Tremaine Ankrum, 3 seventh round picks. Johnston and Ankrum hung in the league for a little bit. Sloman did not. So not going to talk about these seventh rounders too much. If you miss on them, not a big deal. But not a good draft at all for the Rams. The 2021 draft, and this is another draft that was a little spotty. The second round pick, number 57 overall, Tutu Atwell. And I know, we passed on the center. Has Tutu Atwell delivered like a second rounder? Probably not. More like a third rounder, but the jury's still out on him. He's getting opportunities now and playing well. Then you have the third round pick, Ernest Jones. I think the Rams got very good value with him despite what has played out over the last couple months. Fourth rounders, Bobby Brown, Robert Rochelle, and Jacob Harris. Bobby Brown, has he played like a fourth rounder? Maybe more like a fifth rounder. Has he outplayed a guy like Sebastian Joseph Day? I don't think so. Certainly not up to par with Greg Gaines. So Bobby Brown, probably more like a sixth rounder, actually. And then you had Ernest Brown the fourth and Jake Funk. Brown in the fifth, Funk in the seventh, Brown in the fifth. That's a bit early for him, right? And then in the seventh round, Ben Skowronek. Hey, if you take a guy with the 249th pick and he gets on the field, you did all right. So not a bad value, probably worthy of a 6th-round pick. And then 7th-rounder Chris Garrett didn't really play out. So Atwell and Jones at the top, not bad. The rest of it, nothing to get excited about. 2022, their first pick in the 3rd round, Logan Brass. Now, he could recoup some points still, but right now looks like more of a late 6th-rounder. Kobe Durant in the 4th round, about spot on, I would say. Kyron Williams in the 5th. Yeah, he's played like a 2nd-rounder, as has Quentin Lake in the 6th round. And by the way, why do I say just a 2nd-round pick value-wise for Kyron Williams? Well, because he's a running back, right? That's about where the best running backs go early in the 2nd. Darian Kendrick in the 6th round, I would argue, has played like maybe a 4th-rounder. Then you had Daniel Hardy, Russ Yeast, and A.J. Akuri, 3 3rd-round picks. Russ Yeast in the 7th round. Rams got a couple years out of him. Not a bad pick. A.J. Akuri still hanging around, but for a 7th-round pick, I don't have a problem with that. Daniel Hardy, actually with the Bears now, so not a bad pick there either. 3 7th-rounders that at least played in the NFL. Got to give him that. Now, these last 2 years, hard to give a grade. We'll have to see what plays out over the next couple years, but some of these picks looking really good in 2023. Steve Avila in the 2nd, Byron Young in the 3rd, Kobe Turner in the 3rd. I think we got good value on every single one of them. Stetson Bennett in the 4th. I don't know, man. Maybe it'll change, but right now he's looking more like a 6th-rounder. And then you have Nick Hampton in the 5th. Okay with that. Warren McClendon in the 5th. You know, he got on the field finally, and it didn't look good, so maybe more like a 6th-rounder. Davis Allen in the 5th. We'll have to see. He needs some opportunities. And then this last 5th-round pick, Puka Nacua, man, he has played like an early 2nd-rounder. I would argue maybe a 1st-rounder if it weren't for the injuries. And he could end up being a top 15 pick value-wise. Remains to be seen. Trey Tomlinson was a 6th-round pick. Stuck on the roster, injured, so we'll have to see. O'Shawn Mathis and Zach Evans, a 6th and 7th-round pick respectively. Yeah, probably about where they should have gone, even though they're not with the team anymore. Ethan Evans in the 7th round, probably spot on. And Jason Taylor, another 7th-round pick. Hey, you don't ding the Rams for missing on the 7th-round pick. And Deshaun Johnson, Mr. Irrelevant in 2023. You could argue he has proven himself to be worthy of a 6th-round pick. Still on the roster, typically inactive, but he has made some plays at the NFL level. Not a bad pick with the last pick of the draft. And 2024, I don't think I'm really discouraged about any of these picks except perhaps one of them. Jared Verse, man, he's probably at this point worthy of a top 12 pick maybe instead of 19 where he went. Braden Fisk, the 39th pick, probably spot on. Maybe could have gone earlier, should have gone earlier. Blake Corum, have no idea. Cam Kinchins at this point, late in the 3rd, probably a little bit of a reach. Looking more like a late 4th-rounder at this point, to be honest with you. 5th-rounder Brennan Jackson, not active yet, has not played a snap at the NFL level. So a little discouraging, but the jury is still out. 4 6th-rounders. Tyler Davis, hey, he's playing, so that's good. Joshua Carty, another guy, he never drafted a kicker, but I'm happy with him as the 209th pick. Maybe could have gone a little bit earlier. Jordan Whittington, playing like, man, you could even argue a 3rd or 4th-rounder at this point, despite a couple of key blocking fails. Then you have Bo Limmer in the 6th round, 217th pick overall. I'm just going to say it. Bo Limmer is playing like a 2nd or 3rd-rounder. Rams got really good value there. And then their last pick, late in the 7th round, offensive lineman Casey Leviston has been injured. No idea. We'll have to see. So going by the value chart, the actual value delivered as opposed to the expected value, Les Snead has done pretty well 2021 through 2024. And he's had some bad years, namely 2013 and 2016. Overall, clearly in the negative, but I think most teams probably are. How many Pro Bowlers have the Rams drafted? Now, I did a quick cruise through Wikipedia trying to identify all the Pro Bowlers that the Rams drafted. Janoris Jenkins, Greg Zuerlein, Aaron Donald 10 times, Todd Gurley 3 times, Jared Goff 3 times, and he's probably going to get a couple more. And yes, the Rams would get credit for it. In this analysis, they drafted him, and this is an evaluation of the Rams drafts. Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua won each, and the same with Kyren Williams. So the problem with some of these drafts is just no impact players, and a couple of them more recently, Les Snead has done really well. But you have to say, he has had some duds draft-wise. 2012, 2013, 2016, not so good. Last 4, maybe Les Snead is getting better in the positive all 4 years. 120 draft picks over this period, 8 of them Pro Bowlers. Not sure if that's a good percentage, but remember when you talk about Pro Bowls, teams like the Rams get overlooked a little bit, just like they get overlooked for awards. Kobe Turner. So is Les Snead a great GM when it comes to the draft? I would say he's okay. He's probably better than most, and he seems to be improving. But sometimes maybe he gets a little bit more credit than he deserves because he has certainly had some duds. But last 4 drafts, like what I see, and these last 2 have the potential to be franchise changing. Just need these guys to stay healthy. Time for my Rams Up Straight Up game picks for week number 6. Before we get started, let's get caught up on where I am at so far this year, along with our buddy over at CBS Sports, Pete Prisco. We've been tracking his picks and comparing to mine all year long. Now, I found an error in my account of how Pete has done. He said that he was 32-32 going into this week, so I made that adjustment, and he went 6-8 in week 5, leaving him at 38-40, and I went 7-7, leaving me at 39-39. And while that may not be very impressive, and actually, just to say it is not very impressive, but this year has been brutal. Not just for me and Pete, but for pretty much everybody. A lot of upsets, a lot of strange picks, a lot of strange results, I should say, and a lot of survivor leagues that probably ended very, very early. So there's where we're at right now. Let's get into the picks this week. Now, first of all, let's note the teams that are on a bye. We got the 2 undefeated teams, the Vikings and Chiefs, and 2 underperforming teams for similar reasons, really, the Dolphins and the Rams. 4 teams on a bye. What do we got with our first game on the table? We have the 49ers at the Seahawks. Seahawks favored by 3.5. Christian McCaffrey will not be back, although it is looking a little bit better for his possible return the following week. We'll have to wait and see. 49ers are winners of 5 straight in this series. However, Seattle has an all-time lead of 30 wins and 22 losses. A little bit surprising. Did not know that. The 49ers have another new issue to deal with. Jake Moody has a high ankle sprain, so they had a little kicking competition and signed a street free agent there to help them out. So that's something to be concerned about. Ram fans know all about that, signing kickers off the street. But Seattle has been, I think people got a little too excited about their 3-0 start, and sure enough, they came back down to earth and lost to the Giants at home. And, what does that tell us about the Seattle team? Maybe they still have some things to figure out, but I'm taking the 49ers to win this straight up, and these 2 teams would be tied at the top of the NFC West potentially with the Cardinals as well. So taking the Niners, and I think that would be a good result for the Rams, but you never know how things are going to play out. Maybe we'd regret that. Maybe we would look back at this game and be wishing that the Seahawks had won. We'll have to see. Next up, the Jags at the Bears. Bears favored by 2.5. This is only the 9th time these teams have played. The Bears have a 5-3 lead, and the Bears played really, coming off that win over the Rams, where I don't think they played that well. Rams gave that one away. They played really well, but it was against the Panthers. Trevor Lawrence lit it up last week, and will he keep that up? If they were at home, I'm taking the Jags for sure. But in this one, I'll take the home team favorite. Now we have a regional matchup up next. Washington at Baltimore. Ravens 6.5-point favorites. This will be a high-scoring game, and sure enough, that was what I thought. And then I looked at the over-under, the highest of the week, 52.5, because the Commanders' defense, they used to hang their head on defense just a couple of years ago, not so much anymore. And then you have Baltimore. They lost their DC, the new coach over there in Seattle, and they have dropped off a little bit too. So this will be a high-scoring game. Only the 8th time they have met. Ravens lead the series 4-3, and I would take the Commanders in the 6.5 points because Jaden Daniels, man, he is a real deal. This is going to be fun, electric football. Must-see TV from an NFL perspective, but I am taking the Ravens. You know, just a better team overall. What do you say about this game? It could go either way. I don't expect the Ravens to run away with it, though. Jaden Daniels is going to make it close and interesting, but Ravens hang on for the win. Then we have the Cardinals at the Packers. Packers favored by 5. This is another team, the Packers are another team that I think is getting way too much love. If you look at the results this year, nothing to be overly impressed about. There really isn't. And the Cardinals have had 2 really impressive wins over the 49ers and the Rams, and then a little bit disappointing otherwise. So I would take the Cardinals to cover, but Green Bay's a tough place to play, so I'll take the Packers. Texans at the Patriots. Texans 7-point favorites, which sounds about right, but the Patriots just have a knack for keeping things closer than you expect. But I'm taking the Texans in that one. Big NFC West showdown. We got the Bucs at the Saints. Bucs favored by 3.5 because the Saints quarterback Carr will miss this game, replaced by the Fresno State quarterback Jake Haener. Saints have won 12. The Saints have dominated the series, 40 wins to 25 losses, but that is weighted down by the first 16 matches. Saints won 12 of them, and that was when the Bucs were a new franchise, and they were pretty horrible. You remember those days with John McKay. So after those first 16, it's been much more even. But taking Baker Mayfield over Jake Haener, the road to team wins in this one. Browns at Eagles. Eagles favored by 8.5. Browns coming off a horrible loss. Eagles coming off a bye. I will roll with the Eagles in that one. Colts at the Titans. Colts favored by 1. They get Jonathan Taylor back, and that will be the difference. Colts are the better team, and they will win this probably by more than 1, I'm guessing. Chargers at the Broncos. Broncos have dominated this series, 73 wins, 55 losses, and 1 tie. Chargers are favored, and yeah, I don't know, man. Chargers coming off a bye, so maybe that's enough reason to take them in this one. Tough game to pick. Broncos have surprised me a couple times, but I'll take the Chargers. The Steelers at the Raiders. Steelers favored by 3. Games in Las Vegas. And Steelers, yet another team, along with the Seahawks and Packers, that I think are getting way too much love. But the Raiders are, hey, there are new Raiders ready to disappoint us at every turn. And the Steelers will win this one. Falcons at the Panthers. It's interesting there. Let me tell you a little story about Kirk Cousins. Last week, my fantasy football team, I had Anthony Richardson and Matthew Stafford as my quarterbacks. And yeah, maybe not that, nothing to get too excited about. The rest of my team's pretty darn good, though. Richardson was questionable. I didn't want to start Matthew Stafford without Puka or Cooper, so I picked up Kirk Cousins, put him in my starting lineup, and he promptly threw for over 500 yards and 4 TDs. Maybe this Falcon offense, which seems like it should be really dynamic and exciting, but hasn't been, maybe they finally figured it out. You know, they got Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. They have a lot of weapons there. And if last week is perhaps last week is a sign that the Falcons have finally figured it out on offense. So they're going to take care of the Panthers, coming off a big win. Lions at the Cowboys. Lions coming off a bye. Cowboys coming off a thrilling win in Pittsburgh. This one sounds like a Thanksgiving Day special, doesn't it? Lions at Cowboys. Lions favored by 3. Lions are really a complete team, and the Cowboys are not, especially with their guys, some guys banged up. So I'll take the Lions to prevail. Sunday Night Football, Bengals at the Giants. As painful as some of our losses have been for the Rams, none of them compare to what the Bengals went through last week, what the Bengals put their fans through last week. But they're going to bounce back and get a win. The Giants winning in Seattle, really surprising. But don't overreact to the Giants win. Daniel Jones had a really good game. I think the Bengals will win this one. And then Monday Night Football, Bills at the Jets. The Jets, the new interim coach, Jeff Ulbrich. And now the question is Nathaniel Hackett once again on the hot seat? Aaron Rodgers apparently loves him, but this team, you know, someone wrote an article that everybody's has had elevated expectations for what this Jets team could get done this year. Really good defense and Aaron Rodgers, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, but not really a very good team, not a team ready to compete for a Super Bowl. That was the opinion of this writer, and maybe they're right. Maybe they're correct. Maybe this team really isn't that good. Aaron Rodgers has played pretty good. His pick 6 really was devastating last week. It might have won if it weren't for that. So Bills favored by 2 in New York, in New York City. I don't think Jeff Ulbrich I don't think the team's going to necessarily get fired up and come out there and win one for their new interim coach. I think the Bills barely lost last week. They've played really good football day in and day out. The Bills win this one. So interesting commentary on my own picks here. 14 games, and I have picked 10 visiting teams, 10 visitors to win here. And that's usually not a good formula for success, but you know, I always say, when in doubt, take the home team. I guess I don't have a lot of doubts here because 10 of my 14 picks are the visitors. So we'll see how that works out. I realized that when I was done with my picks, and it kind of scares me how I might do this week. I don't know what Pete's doing. We'll check on him in a couple of days, and we'll report back next week, compare how Pete and I did. Out here from Rams Up, Week 6, Rams Up straight up picks for you. We'll talk again soon. That's going to do it for this episode. Remember, you can reach us at ramsuppodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget about our YouTube channel. Our handle is at laramsup.com. Till next time, keep the horns up, stay safe, and have fun out there.